Hey Powwow peeps,
it's Jillian,
it's Issa,
and it's Michael. Welcome to the Sugar Island Scoop, the podcast that tackles seriously juicy questions. Today's question is, what shapes our identity? You know, what makes you, you? We're talking about identity, and it's not just some abstract idea.
We'll be chatting about The Firekeeper's Daughter, a powerful story that explores identity, community, and the journey of a young woman discovering her place in the world. But we won't just be sticking to one book. We're pulling from multiple experiences and looking at the whole picture.
Throughout the podcast, we want you to think about your family, friends, where you grew up, the stuff you love, the things you've been going through, and more as we answer your question about what makes you you. So grab a snack or drink, settle in, and let's get to it.
Alright guys, let's talk about Donis and Firekeeper's Daughter. At the very beginning, she's in this in-between space, right? Like, she's got her Ojibwe side, which is super important to her. But she's also living in this town where it's mostly made of white people. And then there's hockey, which is everything to her. So at first, she's kind of holding back. She's trying to belong, but she's also aware that she's different. She's got this sense of right and wrong from her grandma's teachings, but she's also kind of unsure of herself. Basically, she's trying to figure out where she fits. But then things get crazy, right? With the drugs and the death of her best friend, it really changes how she sees the world. She goes from thinking about herself and her loved ones to considering her community as a whole. There was something Donna said that really resonated with me. She said, maybe it isn't about helping the FBI, but about protecting my community. Can I do one without the other? This really reveals her identity in the sense that she's a caring and considerate person, and she knows that her decisions affect everyone. This made me realize that her core belief is that loyalty lies first and foremost with protecting her people, even if it means taking risks and challenging authorities. What do you guys think?
I completely agree with you, Michael. And I have a really good poem to connect this concept of identity to. Ode to the Nose by Z Maffi brings us back to our own beliefs can shape our identity and shape how one thinks. This poem elaborates an individual's feelings about their physical features. Z Maffi says, "Let it be a reminder that I am not from this space of linear geometry." Basically, what she is saying is that we don't need to conform to simplistic expectations. And I really like that she uses geometry to capture that the things we normalize are boring and that our identities are more complex. This ties back into how our personal beliefs shape who we are. Think about it. Our beliefs, values, cultural backgrounds, and more influence how we perceive the world around us. Just like Azine Maffi, Donis embraces her culture and uses that to shape who she is. She doesn't let anyone else's values bring her down, but instead she uses them to remind her how unique she is.
OMG, yes, Queen, Issa, I definitely agree with you. I think that Ode to the Nose provides us a valuable lesson on embracing who we are and to not question our own values and beliefs. And one of the TED Talks that I found that really inspired me the most was a TED Talk by America Ferrera. She talks about how identity is like a superpower, not an obstacle. Whereas, in her TED Talk, she talked about her experience in the acting industry and how her values and beliefs brought her to where she is today. One good thing she said in her speech that stood out to me the most was, "Change will come when each of us have the courage to question our own fundamentals, values, and beliefs, and see to it that our actions lead to our best intentions." I think what America Ferrera is trying to say is that she lives life based on her own advice, and she encourages us to do the same.
While we're on the topic of things that shape our identity, I'd also like to talk about the role our experiences play in identity. Donis says, "I excitedly shared how my Grandma Pearl fixed my earache with pee. Grandmary glared at my mother as if this was her fault. I learned there were times when I was expected to be a Fontaine and other times when it was safe to be a firekeeper." Donis is excited about Granny June's earache remedy, and then she shares it with Grandmary. But her face says it all, disappointment. And this isn't just some pointless story though. It's when Donis learns real fast about code switching. Fontaine, which is her outer shell of her identity, while firekeeper is who she truly is. Code switching is common for people of mixed heritage, especially for indigenous people who have fit into a society that often marginalizes their culture. And, Donis is much like us. We adjust how we talk, what we share, and depending on who we are with, we act differently too.
Aw, poor Donis. Stuck between identities. I understand how difficult it is to constantly change who you are around different people. I too code switch as well in my everyday life. I definitely agree with Issa on the idea that our cultural backgrounds and the interactions we have shape who we are. Also, I think that social reactions and expectations teach us how to behave and what is considered acceptable within different groups. In the poem An Ode to the Nose, one of the quotes that attracted my attention was, "Let it mark me beautiful, like myself, like Maman, Mehen, and Baba, and the worshippers of fire before them." By sharing her cultural experience, Azin Mafi highlights the significance of cultural heritage and family connections, encouraging us to embrace our roots and the complexity of our identity that shapes our self-perception and allows us to honor those who came before her. This also gives us a good meaning that beauty is believing in yourself, remembering that you are worth it, and standing tall in the truth.
Great point, you two. I think when considering our experiences as well in shaping our identities, America Ferrera's journey is something we must bring back. During her journey in the film industry, she mentions, "It took me most of the car ride home to realize that by sounding more Latina, she was asking me to speak in broken English, and I couldn't seem to figure out why the fact that I was an actual real-life authentic Latina didn't seem to matter." America Ferrera totally understands the whole navigating different cultures thing, just like Donis and Azin Mafi. The core issue of this interaction, however, was that the other person's expectations were not based on America Ferrera's actual language abilities, but on a stereotypical assumption that all Latinas speak broken English. Even though America Ferrera encountered obstacles in her career that marginalized and dehumanized her culture, those experiences shaped her into the powerful and resilient advocate she is today.
OMG, yes! I love that our experiences shape who we are. But it's more than just our experiences. It's the people we interact with that really form our values and views of the world.
You don't say. Could you elaborate more on that?
Sure thing, Issa. Perhaps this quote I found in The Firekeeper's Daughter will allow all of this to make sense. Jamie said, "It's your identity, but it gets defined or controlled by other people." I couldn't have said it better myself. On a positive aspect, our relationships expose us to new experiences, perspectives, and interests. However, there is a negative aspect of relationships in shaping who we are as well. Because in the real world, the pressure to conform suppresses our authentic selves. This results in future identity crisis that makes us question where we truly belong in the world. That's because it's so important that we surround ourselves with amazing people that support our individual growth and allows us to maintain a sense of self.
You make some really good points there, Jillian, and Azin Mafi agrees with you too. Azin Mafi too expresses how our identity is intertwined with the people we surround ourselves with, the family we grow up with, and the communities we're a part of. In her poem Ode to the Nose, she says, "Let it make more of me, more of them, more of us." Now you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with relationships? Well, to understand it, you have to look at the deeper message she's conveying. She implies that by looking into our relationships, we discover different parts of ourselves. It's one of those scenarios where your friend says something that makes you go, "Wow, I never thought about it that way." Each person we connect with brings a little something into our lives that contributes to our sense of self. Our relationships broaden our horizons and change the way we view the world and its people.
Hey, damn, Michael. I agree with you 1000%. You literally cooked on that point. America Ferrera's connections had a way of influencing how she saw herself. She said, "And sure, my families and friends and teachers all constantly warn me that people like me don't make it in Hollywood." You see, all of these key figures in her life and their experiences reflect back on her, and she sees herself and what she deems achievable for her. However, instead of giving up, she wanted to prove them wrong. She turned their negative expectations into motivation to strive to be the best version of herself. In short, our relationships, good and bad, show things about us. And those interactions shape our choices and how we decide to live, ultimately contributing to a well-rounded sense of self.
Alright guys, that's all the time we have for today's scoop. We've explored how the beliefs we cling to, the wild experiences we face, and the beautiful relationships in our lives all come together to form who we are.
What's that thing that stops you from from eating the last cookie in the cookie jar? Most of the time.
Make sure to let us know in the comments down below what other elements you think shape our identities.
Don't forget to make sure to embrace your weirdness, learn from your mistakes and triumphs, cherish your connections, and listen to that inner voice.
If you ever find yourself questioning your identity, don't worry. We're all just figuring it out as we go. Maybe next week, we'll discuss if pineapple belongs on pizza. Now that's a real identity-defining question. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to the Sugar Island Scoop. Bye, Powwow people.